Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Excuse me. I'm going to start off today and show you a little instrument. It's very little, but it's a kind of a nice instrument. It's not very loud. It is sometimes called a thumb harp, and also the real name is really a kalimba. A kalimba or a thumb harp, either name will do, and it has a set of metal prongs, and these prongs are screwed into this wooden plate. There's like a little wooden plate. I don't know how well that's going to show, but anyway, it's set on it. And it's basically that one of them, I have two of these, and one of them is in the key of C, and this one's in the key of E, the way it has been set up. Sometimes you can change the key of it by changing the arrangement of the size of the prongs, because they're not all the same size. And if I tip it this way so you can see the top part, you can see that the lengths of these prongs are different. They're metal prongs. And so you can actually play songs on them. You can play chords on them. Whatever number of fingers you want to use, you can use on them. And it makes kind of a nice sound. It's not a loud sound. So I'm going to play it a little bit. For me to play it, I've got to hold it in my hands like this and then use my thumbs. That's kind of a scale. Let me try it again. I mean, it's not the best tone, but it is a tone, and you actually can play it. And if you want to do like that's a fifth, that's a third, that's a one step up. Third, fourth. If you want an octave, it's more or less in pitch with itself. It's more or less a novelty item, but people do play them. It's going to make your thumbs pretty sore when you start, because unless they're calloused up, it is kind of hard to push those prongs down. But it's got a nice little tone, and I wanted to show it to you, because once in a while, I can show something on an instrument like this and don't have to carry around an instrument that's larger. So that is the kalimba. As I said, I have two of them, and they're both in different keys. Now, the other thing I want to show you is the fingering. I'm gonna just use this for a minute. What we have been doing is working with intervals, and we're going to continue with that today, but I want to show you a basic fingering pattern, which all of the woodwinds have, or pretty much all of them. And if you look at this, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. That's what that scale is. It's a C major scale. So what I usually do when I first see students, after I tell them how to hold it, how to put it in your mouth, how to blow it, I concentrate on B, A, G, F, E, D, and C as well. But principally these 6 notes right here, because the fingering is going to be exactly the same pretty much on any woodwind instrument. So I'm going to use this. Now, if this is a German instrument, when I get to that F, B, A, G, F, I'll just put that one finger of my right hand down. But if it turns out to be a Baroque instrument, which most of the instruments are, I'll add this finger here to make it a little bit better pitch. I'll skip this one, so it's B, A, G, F with this one, or this one. And in the Baroque, you don't use this one for that F. I don't know if you can tell by that, but when I play this F and do the German fingering, it's a little sharp. So you can tell by that. that you need to have that extra finger, and that would be the Baroque fingering. Why do they use Baroque instruments? They look exactly the same, the notes are exactly the same, and except for some minor inconveniences, it's fingered exactly the same. But the pitch for the Baroque instrument is a little bit more accurate, and if you're looking for accuracy, and most people are, if they're professional players or if they're doing a lot with music, that little extra bit of a vibration that makes it a little bit better pitch is important. This is a Baroque instrument, and the reason I would know that is that on the back, the tone hole in the back, there is above it a little tiny bead. You may not be able to pick it up in an instrument this small. It's exactly the same color as the rest of the instrument. There's nothing remarkable about it, but when you see that B, it's usually right above the tone hole in the back, the thumb hole, or right below it, sometimes a little different color, but usually about the same. Then you know that you've got a Baroque instrument. And so you use Baroque fingerings. That's the only telltale sign of difference between the Baroque and the German instruments. Now, I have a little instrument here from Japan. It's a Senesby Junior, and what I like about it, it's a German instrument, but I mean German fingering, there's no B, but what I like about it is that tone hole in the back is got a little bit of plastic around it, so you can see it very easily. So when I say the tone hole in the back, where you put your thumb on, that's it. There's no B, though. There's no, on the top of it, so I would assume it would have a German fingering. It fingers a little bit different. I mean, the way that it's feeling when you play, it's a little bit different, just simply because it's made a little bit differently. Maybe the position of the holes are a little bit different, but it's really a very good instrument. And I use it, and I like it very much. So it's a really good instrument. I also have a first note which I got right here in town. This is a red one. They come in different colors, and what I like about them is that they are, here again, there is a B. I want to mention this first. This B is down here. The tone hole is up a little higher. Tone hole and B right down there. But the thing is, it's the same color as the instrument. It is an exact B, and so therefore this would be fingered as a Baroque instrument. You can see it there, the difference is better. So you can see, in the interest of getting your pitch exactly right, you need to change the fingering accordingly to what you have. Most people play Baroques. This is not a toy. It's not very expensive. It plays very well. And I bought it in a hobby shop. And I have 2 or 3 of them from that same hobby shop. And, you know, it says right on the package, not a toy. It looks like it might be a toy. It's in a toy section of the store, but it really plays like a regular instrument. The upper register's not quite as good as you would get with a regular instrument, such as a Casio or something like that, but it does play. And I've played this in regular orchestras. It sounds fine. It sounds like any other recorder would sound. So when you get to that B, A, G, F, either this or this, F, and then for the E, you've got to lift this 4th finger up and just put this one down. The German instruments are a little bit easier to play because you don't have that complication, if you want to call it that. It would be B, A, G, F, and then the E goes down, and then the D goes down. F, E, D, F, E, D. But if it is a Baroque instrument, then that F, you add that extra key, leave the middle one untouched, F, and like this, and then to get the E, lift the fourth finger and put the third finger down at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to get an extra note that you're not expecting. If I'm playing it like a German instrument, now really the sound isn't much different, but it is a little bit of a difference. And then what I also brought was one of my flutophones. There is a tone hole in the back. There is a place for you to put your thumb just to rest it. It's not a key. And when you play it, excuse me, the pitch is a little bit different, but it's very, very close. But you would not do this kind of a Baroque fingering on it. It wouldn't work for an F. So you have to use it just like it would be a German fingering. Now, the interesting part, I didn't bring a saxophone with me or a diagram of a saxophone, but for the whole scale, the flutophone plays the C scale exactly like the saxophone does. But what you do is, considering the C, here we say B, A, G, F, E, D, but then you've got a C on top of that B. And the way the saxophones play it and the way the flutophones play it is the same way. This is your C. And then you flip and use this one, and that's your B, C, B. And then you add A, G, F, E, D, C, C, B, A. Now you might think that the B would be higher than the C, but it's not. It's not, but the way that the instruments finger it, at least for the flutophone and the saxophone, you have to have the C as the second one down, flip to the first one for the B, which is a step below it. And if you look at the chart here, and I'll point this out to you just in reference so you can see it. Here is a C right here, the mid-range C. And then the B is right below it, one note below it. The C is higher than the B. The C here, it's higher than the B. The C here is higher than the B. It's like that all the way down the scale. So, but instead of having the highest note as the C, and the second one down is the B, it's reversed on the instruments just by the way that the air travels in the inside of the instrument and the fingerings. This becomes the C, second one down with the middle finger. And then you flip and put the first one down, and that becomes the B, even though it's lower, even though that it's lower, you know, than the C is. And then you add A, G, F, E, D, and C. And that's the way it's played. Now, with the recorder, people do get confused because what about the D? Well, the D would be the same as a C, but you lift your thumb off, and what do you get? You get the D. Here's your C, second one down with the middle finger. Flip to the first finger, that becomes the B, and then you add A, G, F, E, D. Lift that thumb. It's the same as the C, except you take your thumb off in the back, and that's how you get your D. Now, I can fake a D by doing it the way the flute does it. And sometimes I do it that way because depending upon what kind of a song I'm playing, I sometimes prefer to use a flute fingering. Now, people tell me you can't do it. It's not right. It's not the way it was made, blah, 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 blah. I do it anyway if it works. So when would I make a decision that I play the D the way that it should be played or the way the flute does it? Depending upon the musical notes that I play before the D and after the D, which one is easier to do? which one is it simpler to do and easier to get? As long as the instrument can do it and it doesn't have a problem with the pitch, then you can do it. It depends all upon the range of the music, because it's not unusual for me, like when I'm doing the Alleluia chorus from Handel's Messiah, a lot of times I'll use this fingering for the D. And for the C sharp, I play the C sharp like a saxophone, which it is for the recorder. That's the recorder fingering. Saxophone fingering. You know, sometimes if I'm playing solos on different instruments, I have to think, what instrument am I playing? Because the fingerings are a little different on some of them, but there's a lot of similarity too. And in fact, I had somebody ask me, do you ever forget when you're playing a solo what instrument you're playing on? Normally I don't, because I've rehearsed it so much, but once in a while I'll say, wait a minute, this is not a recorder, this is a saxophone. Oh, wait a minute, this is not a clarinet, this is a flute. And there's little bits of differences, but you see, the whole idea of transference is that you can take what you've learned on one instrument and transfer it to another instrument. Saxophones, clarinets, flutes, very similar in their fingerings. Oboes and bassoons, I've played both of them. I'm not as skilled on them, but oboes and bassoons, they're also very similar. Same scale, I changed the fingerings depending upon what I was playing and what instrument it comes from. But it's all right. It doesn't make any difference to me. Some people will say, "Oh, you'll never use that fingering again. That's not natural to the flute, or that's not natural to the recorder." But I don't let that stop me if I feel that I think it's going to work out best in a solo, and I practiced it that way, and it's natural to me. Why not? But you've got to have an instrument that can do it. Not all instruments can do it. Fortunately, most instruments can do a lot of changes between the fingerings, depending upon as long as it's in pitch or not. It has to be able to be in pitch. Now, I need to watch my time. So this gives you some insight. I'm going to now, I think I have time to do this. We are working on intervals for instruments, and so I've done a little bit of it. Here's your C. You can see that it's one step higher than the B, and then you add A, G, F, E, D, and that's that low C. That low C is middle C, and there is a ledger line through it. It's halfway between a bass clef and the treble clef. And if you want to reverse it, you can go from C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But remember that fingering is a little bit different on that C. Now, if you want to remember easily what those notes are, there is an easy way to do it. Starting with the E, C, D, E. I'm doing just the lines now. E, G, B, D, F. Every good boy does fine. If you can remember that statement, every good boy does fine, or every good boy deserves fudge, or Ernie gives Bert dead frogs will also work. If you're a child, I think they like to use that one. But at any rate, E on the first line, G on the second line, B on the third line, D on the fourth line, and F on the fifth line. And so if you have like a sentence you can use, then the first letter of every sentence is really terrific, and it'll help you to remember. Now for the spaces, F, A, C, E, it spells face. F-A-C-E. For the spaces, that works out well too. Now, the bass clef also has a group of little signs and sayings like that, but we're not teaching the bass clef here. The bass clef would be some of the instruments like the trombones and the basses, and their lowercase letter. I mean, they're lower in their pitch. But for the treble clef, this will work all the time. E, G, B, D, F. Every good boy does fine. F-A-C-E, face, and that will help you to remember it. And all you have to do for a scale is remember that C is on the third line up, so that's that C, and then B-A-G, F-E-D. We're not doing sharps and flats here, just the regular notes. Bag, fed. And when I started teaching in a school system where they wanted me to do recorders, we chose the recorders with the Baroque fingerings because they are actually a little bit better than the German fingerings, although they're a tiny bit harder to play. And I started them off. Remember, bag, fed. B-A-G-F-E-D. Then you've got a C on each end. And then I taught them the other skills in terms of playing. Well, I don't have time to, I wanted to do this review with you. I don't have time to start anything new, so I'm going to close it here, and we're going to continue with this next time. Please join me then.